Welcome to the Healers Podcast, where we inspire and guide healers through business expansion. We give voice to incredibly abundant healers to share their stories. We dive into the quantum field to unlock the energies of conscious creation. We also develop digital tools to help you grow, which you can find on healless.com. I'm your host, Yuli, and I'm grateful you chose to join this space. Now let's go deep. Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another amazing episode. Today we have my dear friend and a fellow wellness tech entrepreneur, Dr. Stephanie Marango. She is integrative physician, author, teacher, executive. She's a graduate of Stanford University and Silicon Valley. She received her MD with distinction in research and trained in psychiatry. In addition to her private practice in New York, she educates about wellness via lectures, and her expertise is cited through print and broadcast media like Women's Health, Fitness and Shape magazines. She has authored a variety of works from peer-reviewed research to popular books such as The Wisdom of Your Body and Your Body and the Stars. And currently, Dr. Marango is spending most of her professional time as the founder and CEO of Coherent Health, a way for independent health and wellness professionals to integrate care. Just reading this bio makes me super excited for this conversation because I don't meet a lot of people that, know technology as deeply as I do as well, but also understand health and wellness. So this is going to be a super insightful conversation. And as you guys know, I always like to set intention for each episode. And for this one, I would love to offer a new look at technology for holistic practitioners and what it means to run a coherent practice. So, Stephanie, without further ado, welcome to the episode and feel free to set your intention as well.
Thank you, Yuli. It's always interesting and very exciting to hear one's bio read to one. So I'm looking forward to our conversation as well. And my intention with it is to further support practitioners and the good work they provide to the world.
Amazing. So let's dive right in and talk about coherence, specifically within our operational systems as humans and healers. And coherence is a big word for you. You literally made it into your business name. So I have to ask you this question. What's your point of view on that?
I have put it into the business name Coherent Health, and it is very intentional, and it is something I strive for personally and professionally. Coherence is alignment between all the parts that constitute a whole, regardless of whatever the whole is. So, for example, in terms of the human operating system, what are the parts that make you function harmoniously, coherently? For example, if you have an emotional feeling such as love, is your mental field saying the same thing? So are the words "I love you" forming, or are you writing a love poem? Is your body similarly expressing love, maybe via a kiss or a hug or a certain glimmer in the eyes? We usually know coherence when we see it, and likewise we know when we're out of alignment, which the example there would be saying "I love you" with gritted teeth, dulled eyes, a flat expression, no body movement. It just wouldn't register as authentic. I find the question very interesting with regards to healers as well, because healers are human. So this is true for all of us. However, I feel societally, we've been holding healers to a separate standard. And sometimes, and I think marketing actually has a bunch to do with this, we expect them to be quote unquote perfect, entirely coherent. I see coherence as a journey. I see it as a continual striving for, like how equilibrium is dynamic. It's not static. And so we think that the nutrition coach should be quote unquote perfect in the way she eats, in the way she approaches food, because we've read her website that espouses a certain philosophy, or we've seen her on social media or in a talk. And I think that's registering as a kink in the system, a kink in coherence for healers who then feel some element of self-doubt or self-questioning, saying, but I'm not perfect at eating. Can I be teaching others? I'm not perfect at yoga asana. Can I be a yoga instructor? Whereas I would argue that their very journey of it actually makes them stronger healers, right? It gives them the ability to speak to how something can happen versus the what. So, for example, many times we'll hear what we should eat, the right foods we should eat. Very well. I think most of us know by now, quote unquote, what we should be eating, but how do we make that happen? And when healers are on their own journey of how they make a right relationship with food healing, that's how they can best help their clients. And then not only are they in coherence with themselves, but they sink into coherence with the client's journey as well.
That is a really profound statement. And I never thought about it, but this high standard that we hold healers to is really important, because it ties actually into so many other conversations I've had with healers about the self-worth and being authentic self. And if you listen to some of the previous episodes, we talk about those subjects, but you're absolutely right. The issue here is the standard, and that the striving for coherence, right, sometimes maybe stands in a way of achieving it.
Well, that's part of the rub in our society, right? We're very outcome focused. We're not journey focused. So we believe coherence, like balance, is something that can be achieved. And once we're there, there is a there, and we're all good, versus it being a continual, vibration or oscillation around a point, a state of being.
So how does that translate into business? What does it mean to run a coherent practice for you?
So in my perspective, again, the whole that coherence applies to, you get to define. So in terms of a practitioner's practice, that's going to incorporate her work for sure, also her admin, like accounting and scheduling and invoicing. It's going to encompass communication, including emails that she puts out before, after the session, the way she communicates during a session. It encompasses the aesthetics, the visibility, how the room presents itself or how the Zoom presents itself. And the coherence there, I see really, it comes down to the connection between intention and execution. So for whatever the practitioner wants her practice to be, whatever she wants the communication part to be, the visual part to be, the bookkeeping part to be, are they aligned within themselves and with each other? So, for example, are her emails professional? Is she copy editing punctuation? Is there an email signature, or is it a haphazard response? If she's saying that she offers one-to-one sessions, but then she's really only free for them every 4 months or 6 months, that's out of alignment. That's not coherent with the client's healing journey necessarily. She might want to practice that expands more in terms of revenue and therefore expenses, but the bookkeeping system is a bunch of receipts shoved into a drawer that aren't going to be, the intent is to look at them again. They might not be looked at again for a while. It's just, and there's no right or wrong here. It's just the observation of, here's what I want, here's my intent, and then the execution, but when I'm being the observer, the neutral observer, the witness of it, is it really lining up? If I'm saying I'm doing X, am I doing X, or is it really Y?
First of all, I'm really excited that you mentioned admin because it's always the part that people try to, at least have complicated relationship with, right? Let's call it just that, right? It's always feels like, at least when I talk to healers, we want to do healing. Healing is our calling, and all these other parts of the business, they're just there to kind of interfere with that giving energy. And we always want to find just someone to take care of it and not to even deal with that, right? Or, in the worst case, like you mentioned, just stash all the receipts in a drawer and never face it, which is not a good solution. So I mean, and to me, I absolutely agree with you. It's such an integral part of our business. You cannot really call on abundance and avoid that part of your business, avoid dealing with it on a weekly, daily basis, and not just dealing with it, but actually embracing it.
Yes. Yes, that is a fantastic point, because part of coherence is the framework. It's the entire system, right? It's how admin fits into it. And it can't be the thorn in your side. It needs to be one of the equally valuable Jenga blocks in the whole structure. And so then what is you, the practitioner, what is your resistance there? Right? It's interesting self-discovery. What are the internal obstacles? What are the external obstacles between you and, in this case, admin or whatever it may be?
Totally. And I have to tell you myself, even not being a healer, with my first business when I launched, and I always framed myself as a creative individual, as a creative professional. And when finally I stepped on my first startup journey, and I realized that no one else is going to take care of my finances and my projections and forecasts, and I was forced to actually learn accounting and from ground up, which I did. But I found a way to enjoy it. And my way of enjoying it was making my Excel spreadsheets looking incredible. I played with the colors and I made them look like they're works of art, because that gave me the pleasure of actually playing with those numbers. So whatever it is that gets you there, I personally highly recommend. I couldn't agree more to embrace and give it like a true chance to integrate into your practice.
Props to you. Quite honestly, we can have our next call on how to integrate fun colors into Excel, because I can't say that I'm past that obstacle at all.
Anytime. It's one of my favorite things. Listen, kids have coloring books. We have colorful Excel spreadsheets, right?
Right. Why not? PowerPoint, Excel.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk about technology and how that fits into this picture. And what role does it play in a healing practice or in the life of a healer? I mean, we both really integrate technology into our life, professionally, personally, in every possible way. What do you see from your point of view, some of the obstacles, the blocks that maybe could be blocking someone who is in the healing space as a professional, working with technology and integrating it into their practice?
With technology, well, I think what we want is for technology to facilitate whatever our work is and not create another huge mountainous unwanted to do, especially as we are leading lives that are just replete with technology. And what I see with the practitioners on coherent health in terms of the obstacles is pattern change. That's the big one. And it's not really a surprise. That's what we knew going in, because there's no software competition. There's no tech competition for us right now. The competition literally is the practitioners and their current behavioral patterns, what they're doing, which in terms of note-taking and collaborating is either not taking notes or taking notes in handwritten journals and putting them on a shelf and not seeing them again. In terms of collaborating, it's wanting to collaborate for the most part, not knowing how, and hence not doing it. So pattern change is a kicker, right? There's this great, I think it was a psychology study many years ago on it, where individuals were told, okay, you already have the pattern of brushing your teeth firmly established in your day, at least for these people. You do it with your dominant hand. We'll just call it the right hand for this example. For the next week, we want you to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, the left hand. That sounds simple to anyone asked this, right? You already know you brush your teeth 2 times a day. It's usually approximately the same time. The participants couldn't brush their teeth with their left hand for any number of reasons. Maybe they forgot. Maybe it felt uncomfortable. It didn't even matter what the reason was, and it wasn't even necessarily an intentional reason. But the point is, pattern change is hard, even, when the basis is a positive pattern that's already happening. So the example shows us that it's hard to change patterns that even already exist, let alone ask for someone to create a new pattern. And I believe that's the obstacle. Pattern change can create a lot of fear. The mind likes what's comfortable. It likes what's familiar. It likes what's known. And it makes up a lot of different reasons and excuses to not do other things, even if those things might be better for us. With my work with pattern change, because I work a lot with my patients with that, I've seen, though, that you can overcome it. And awareness is the first step. And we can talk about that next if you like. There are a couple more steps that I've noticed. The good news being
I would love to learn all the steps that you've noticed.
All the steps. Here we go. The mystery of pattern change revealed. So the first step is awareness. Without self-awareness into whatever the pattern is, you're not going to be able to get to the next few steps. You have to be able to see that there's an issue, a resistance, an obstacle, or even maybe just a new direction you want to move in, and own up to it. And that new issue, that new direction, might be as subtle as just a sense, as just a perception. Like for practitioners, the sense that I need a broader framework for my practice. If I had different scaffolding, different bones, I feel like I could get more clients. I could become more visible. I could expand my revenue. And you have to be able to hear and trust that sense. And I always like the practice of turning the intangible tangible. So even just writing down the senses you have to be able to see in front of you on a piece of paper is going to help step by step in forming your direction. So from awareness of whatever the particular issue or direction is commitment. You have to be able to commit to this new path, to this new change. And again, in terms of making the intangible tangible, because we're talking about commitment, think to yourself, feel for yourself, what would it be like? So if you're looking for, let's say, using our example, a greater framework, which might include, better bookkeeping, better note-taking, better admin. What would that feel like? What does better organization feel like to you? Does it feel like greater clarity, greater ease? Again, tune in and write those qualities down. And if anything, they're a good reminder for you to have when you're on this practice change journey. Once you've chosen your new patterns, like better organization or better accounting, whatever it is, and you've written down the qualities, now you need to get to the to-dos. And the thing with the to-dos is you don't want them to come from a place of judgment or self-correction, and you want to keep things positive. So better record keeping, for example, is something that's more proactive to write down than not writing in journals anymore. And just write down a whole list of to-dos. And from that list, pick the top ones that resonate with you. Pick the ones that make most sense to you, because those are the ones that are going to get done. And once you've picked a couple of them, you hone down on one of them. And maybe the to-do is learn about note-taking software. That's it. It's very simple. And then you schedule it. You make it practical. Thursday, 5 p.m., go online and search record-keeping software. And that's your step. That's your first to do. That's all you have to do from that whole list. And after you complete the step, you take the next practical one that's informed. So maybe it's call customer service to learn more about the pricing. There's no rush. I believe that the universe likes to support our steps. So as long as you keep taking steps in the quote unquote right direction, that being whatever the direction is for you, you're going to get there. And the final part of this great practice change plan is accountability and support. It does take a village. We are stronger together. So reach out to friends, reach out to colleagues, ask them for support. Maybe there's a practitioner who's a record-keeping whiz, and you can meet her for coffee and she can share tips with you based on how she does it. Maybe you can even ask her, hey, can you support me in this endeavor? Do you mind if I call you every now and then with questions? I found that most people actually want to help. All we have to do is ask. And then a corollary is all we have to do is be willing to receive.
That is a very important point. And thank you so much for breaking down the steps so clearly. I mean, it seems so easy right now
All right.
to
So you're
follow
set to
any pattern change. We all know that it's easier said than done. But have you seen any really great examples from this pattern changing with your new company and the software, or just from your own personal practice? Kind of like anything in the healing space specifically that we could learn from?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I have seen on our Coherent Health platform users adopt the note taking and go from either no notes or handwritten notes to taking digital notes and feeling really happy about it, feeling like they benefit from it, which is the point. I don't know how much more I can elucidate on that example because I wasn't part of their process doing it. We're doing everything on our end, education wise, engagement wise, to help. In terms of,
Well, that's the beauty of technology, right? You led them on that path
yeah,
to change behavior
we're
with
trying.
your software. So that's a great
Trying.
accomplishment.
I'm racking my brain. See, this is why I take patient notes. Because my brain is not as reliable anymore. For a good example with a patient, because I'm very keen on individual responsibility and allowing individuals to step up to their own journey of care, which isn't just conceptual. It's a very practical reality. It's what you eat, it's how you move, it's what you think, it's when you sleep, what you read, et cetera, et cetera. And so I always work very diligently with them to say, okay, so here are all of the recommendations I'm giving you. Which are the ones that resonate most with you, and which are the ones that are most convenient? Because where those two circles overlap, that Venn diagram, those are the ones you're going to start with. Those are the ones that are actually going to happen versus you're leaving my office and saying, oh, yeah, this is a great idea. Of course, I'll do it. And then not doing it because it's just as hard as my asking you to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand from our prior example. And so I'll have them really consider which they resonate with, which are most convenient, and then we schedule it into their day. We will literally sit there and say, okay, so at what time are you going to be able to do that? I really like in the morning, for example, for a lot of the women in particular I work with, joint circles, head circles, neck circles, shoulder circles, elbow, wrist, all the joints, all the way down to your feet as a way to wake up, read the morning, and create a nonlinear framework for your day. And we'll get very specific. Maybe for some folks that happens only on Mondays at 9 a.m. Maybe it happens every day. It totally depends on the individual. But my counsel is always start simple. Start with something that seems so ridiculously easy for you to do once a week, 2 minutes. I can do that. Great. Start there. And then let it feel good enough that the healthy snowball effect kicks in. And naturally on your own, you keep doing it more.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I love that example. And I think we discussed kind of in depth everything we talked about, kind of stayed on that mental plane, right? And as you know, I love to take things up a notch, and I would love to leap into the quantum with the same question. Okay, how do we take, yes, we're just doing this fun quantum dance right now. You can't see it. But how can we, if we had to take the same concept of coherence and pattern changing and really talk about it from the energetic plane, how do you see that working within a healing practice or just building our everyday reality and expanding?
So, coherence and the quantum field. So, the quantum field is a field that's ruled by perception. Schrodinger's cat is alive or it's dead, and it's entirely up to you. And I think right now, as a collective, we're being asked more than ever to take responsibility at the individual level to re-empower ourselves in terms of our perception for who we are and what we want from life and how we are going to create it. So we're creating our own reality. We are saying the cat is alive or the cat is dead. We're not letting anybody else tell us that. And to me, that might be one of the most important takeaways for right now. And in terms of coherence, that's how we create coherence in our lives, because our perception rules the roost. And we don't really get that. I think right now from our minds, we might understand, yes, it's our perception that creates our reality. At the same time, it can be really hard to separate our perception from corporations' perceptions, the government perceptions, tech perceptions, billboards, advertising perceptions, to really see and feel who we are and what we want. And in that regard, the seeing, feeling, the sensing, that's part of perception. Perception isn't just thinking. Perception, I think, refers to an entire realm of how we know. And that's through all of our senses. That's not just through our mind. That's through, the feeling senses, the seeing senses, the hearing senses, the touching senses, tasting senses. It's through the knowing senses, that greater sense of knowing. Some cultures call it, through the mind's eye, through the third eye. And when you get into that realm, which is harder to describe scientifically, you're getting into, this is the quantum realm and this is the realm of potential. And it's not separate from who we are. It's the fabric of who we are. Because I think most people at this point know that we're made of atoms, right? Atoms are building blocks, but that's not it. When you look at an atom is 99.999999% space. That space isn't empty. That space is quantum space. So we are it. It's not different from us. We just happen to be living in a very Newtonian way right now, right? We have the quantum physics, we have Newtonian classical physics. One is not right, one is not wrong. Both exist simultaneously. It's just what level we're perceiving at. And right now, the balance is out of whack. We've been living classical to the exclusion of quantum, which is much more nonlinear, which is much more amorphous, which is where, if we are to be coherent, it's something we have to feel and sense and perceive and understand and then strive for and attain for ourselves. It's not going to be external sources that tell us, okay, here's what success is. Here's the path you need to follow. Here are the colleges you need to attend, the jobs you need to have, the house, the picket fence, the dog, all of that to be successful. No, the question is, if it's around success, what is success to you? And then how does your individual life stack up around living successfully? It might not even be future oriented, because when the quantum field is not, there's no linear past, present, future. So today, right now, what is success and how are you living it? And it's going to look different, one person than the other. And that's a very different reality than we've all been used to.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I can relate so much to everything you're saying. And I also want to listen to it like 3 times more. And really, because you said so many amazing, profound things in a very short time. But if we take this further and really extend this quantum vision into the healing space, and I feel like you have such a unique point of view as someone who's been trained as a physician, but also works a lot in this, I mean, we still call it alternative spaces, right? Until planes that are not explained by the science always. And I don't know how you balance that, but if you had to kind of give us your peek into the future, how does this quantum world and some of those new discoveries that we're really embracing, how is that changing the healing space? And what do you see from your point of view?
From my point of view, it's putting the emphasis on the client, the patient, whatever we want to call her, in terms of responsibility. It's, what we've been talking about in terms of perception, in terms of sensing and knowing, and then from there going out and doing, aligning your intention, aligning with your execution at the individual level in regards to health. Because right now, most of the time, our information is coming from external to us in terms of what we should be eating, how we should be living a healthy lifestyle. And I think the whole point of the quantum field is being able to tune into our own forces. Well, I can't say our own forces of creation. They're not our own. They're the forces of creation, but the way they come together to make us, to make each person, because there's information in each of our fields. And all we need to do really is tune in and understand what that is, and then say thank you, but no thank you to the rest of the noise so that we can choose what diet we want based on a much deeper sense, a much more expansive sense than just the mental sense. So, for example, we're surrounded by so many diets today: ketogenic, vegan, anti-inflammatory. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. There's no one right way for every single person to eat. In fact, there's no one right way for you to eat for the rest of your life, because you're going to keep shifting as a human being for the rest of your life, and your dietary needs are going to change. But you need to be able to tune into you. You need to be able to perceive within your field what you need.
And how does a healing professional help in that journey? What do you see the role of healers in that exploration?
I see healers as guides, ultimately as guides for every person to help each person find their own healer within. I believe everyone is her own healer. Everyone is her own patient. And, some folks are here and their purpose is to guide others in that journey. And originally with Hippocrates in that school, that's part of the oath, really, is to be able to guide the patient, to be the patient's teacher. I ultimately always try to put myself out of a job. My goal is to be able to help the folks I see with tune into themselves enough that, maybe they come see me for tune-ups, but they don't need to rely on me for information for what they need. They have their own mechanisms for understanding and finding that out. So to me, the emphasis and the answer to your question has to do with clients and, well, all of us, because we're all clients, and individual responsibility.
And we're still seeing, though, that the, traditional medicine and what we call the system, the healthcare system, is dominating, right, on our world majorly when it comes to our health and well-being. And the alternative medicine space is certainly expanding at a very fast pace. What is the advice that you can give to healers to advance their own position within this ecosystem and spread more of their approach, this kind of more client-centric, holistic approach, and make it more mainstream?
Right. How do we become more visible? And I think it takes a village. It takes the work you're doing with Healist, right, to create an operating system that makes the management of the practices easier for both the practitioner and client to access. It includes the work I'm doing with Coherent Health. That raises a standard of care by providing record keeping and collaborating. I think that the more practitioners can join forces in different ways, there is a strength in unity, and there will become more systems available to this strong network, which will then only keep increasing the visibility of the network and the visibility of each practitioner from there. The client's ability to find the practitioner, become empowered by the practitioner, and so on and so forth. So even if that involves technology, and even if tech is, one of the things that makes you pause, like we were talking about earlier in the conversation with pattern change, I encourage practitioners to use their perception, use that overlap between resonance and convenience, and do something they haven't done in terms of practice management and organization and systems that will raise the standard of care they're able to give and the visibility of their work into the world.
That's an incredible advice. And now that we listen to all of your wisdom, I'm sure people are wondering about your journey and how you came to become so proficient in both of those worlds, right? What was your unique journey from tech to medicine to integrative care? If you can share a little bit about that, and what do you see as your mission, that would be, I think, very fascinating for our listeners.
In 10,000 words or less, as briefly as I'm able. So my journey started with never really wanting to become a physician in the traditional route, doing pre-med in college and then going to medical school. In fact, I wanted to do microeconomic lending. And I took a detour into Silicon Valley because I happened to go to college at Stanford during Silicon Valley bubble number one. And I thought to myself, hey, there's no better way to learn about growing a small business, which I would be helping others do with microfinancing, than actually doing it myself. And at that time, 22-year-olds were so empowered. So I went into Silicon Valley and into a 6-car pileup on Highway 101. And I was in car number 5. So car number 6 broadsided us. We rear-ended car number 5. It was a whole hoopla with flares and whatnot on the highway. And long story short, because I could have died, but didn't, I asked myself a lot of questions around my own coherence, my own alignment. Who did I think I was? And was I actually living in that way? So if I thought I was a joyful person, was I actually being joyful, or was it just in my head that I was joyful? If I thought I was being a good daughter, was I talking to my mom on the phone, or was I just kind of pissed off every week when we talked for 5 minutes? It really made me ask a lot of questions I wouldn't have otherwise. And at the same time, it opened my eyes into all of these different healing modalities, because I lost my short-term memory. I effectively got full body whiplash. I couldn't walk more than a block. And at the end of the month, with not much more than painkillers and bed rest as prescribed by the mainstream course, I thought to myself, as a dancer, as someone who has always just journeyed in the, health care realm to her best ability, making green smoothies before they were a thing, I thought to myself, this isn't working. I need to go other ways. And that's where my real integrative journey began. At that time, it began with chiropractic and acupuncture and myofascial massage. And the answer to one of my how am I living me questions led me to medical school, with the way that not just I wanted to help people, but how I wanted to help the system. I went in knowing that I wanted to integrate. I knew that from my little corner, my little puzzle piece for how I could help, I wanted to bring in awareness of and connection with different modalities. And I had absolutely no idea what that was going to look like at all, but fast forward through my training, my private practice, different books, different educational adventures. And here I am integrating the first part of my life, the Silicon Valley, Stanford part, with the second part of my life, the medical health and well-being part. And it feels right. It feels like everything that I have gone through and I have learned has served a purpose. And part of that purpose is here and today and in the form of coherent health.
That is so inspiring. Thank you so much for, painting this very long and incredibly tough journey into such a coherent picture that is really, how much I admire who you are and what you do and everything you've gone through. Just really, like I said in the beginning, I haven't met so many people who really managed to combine both worlds and find something that actually they can do that brings value to others and can make so much good in the world. And whether it's within your individual practice or what you're building. So I really hope you keep doing what you do and speaking up for the community of, holistic healers and sharing your wisdom. It was just really special to have you on the podcast today. And I think we're very lucky to get to hear some of those very coherent thoughts on both the quantum and our reality.
No, thank you, Yuli. I hopefully, as the listeners can tell, I feel strongly about supporting all health and wellness practitioners, and especially the independent ones who currently don't have mechanisms of support, because there are so many different ways to be well. And it does take a village. And each person needs different modalities at different times in her life and deserves access to them, right? We all deserve comprehensive well-being. And it's a pleasure to have you as a colleague in the field doing your good work, not just with this podcast, but also with Healist. I'm so excited to be on the platform soon. So thank you for involving me in your journey.
Thank you so much. And thanks for listening.